When we talk about theater during the Middle Ages, we have to acknowledge Roswitha of Gandersheim, a canoness who lived between 535 and 575 AD. It is said that she was inspired by the work of the Roman comic playwright Terence. So she wrote comedies. She wrote six of them. But it is not certain that she lived to see her plays performed. They were published, all of them, in 1501. Medieval theater, in terms of presentation, we said it is outdoor theater primarily um, that flows through the town and sets up performances where people are gathered. The whole nature of medieval performance of this type was uh, communal. It was popular. It was a time when people took off work to come to see these cycle plays presented. And their presentation, the way it was presented to an audience, they mounted these plays on wagons, on the backs of wagons. And the medieval stage had two parts. The flatbed of the wagon was called the platea. It was undifferentiated stage space until they started talking, and through their dialogue, you realized where you were. However, the mansion, which was a backdrop that was run along one side of the bed of the wagon, so it provided a stage there. That was painted. It was probably a piece of canvas that was stretched so that it would hang there secure. And on that piece of canvas was painted a scene. Wherever the action of the play is set, the Garden of Eden, the mountains, the ocean, wherever that was reflected, of course, on that backdrop was their set. Also, when it came to performers and performing, women were allowed to perform in these medieval cycle plays, which made them even more accessible to audiences. Please understand that this is something preventing women from performing, because we're going to see this when we talk about theater during the Renaissance in England. Women weren't allowed to perform. But during the Middle Ages, women took a very big part in these performances, in these cycle plays. But costuming was basic medieval clothing. Nothing really specific until a character had to be represented. Usually, characters in these Bible stories, angels, saints. If a saint appeared, that saint would have a symbolic representation of something that identifies their character. St. Peter had a ring of keys. If it was a angel, if it was an angel, that angel usually would wear clergy garments and have wings attached. The most dramatic and the one costume that provided a lot of spectacle, of course, was that of the devil, and that was red. Probably carried a trident or a spear, whatever, and had a tail and horns. All of it, please understand, was intended to make the greatest impact on the audience. It's also important to talk about and think about the way the medieval stage or medieval theater um, dealt with time, the realms of time, and the hereafter, which was, of course, the most important aspect of theater to communicate to the audience, living on earth, leading a Christian faithful life is what's going to determine where you spend the hereafter. eternity. One end of the stage represented heaven, the other hell. Your time on stage, that was your life. Uh, Very important to make that impact. Medieval theater was not without spectacle of some sort, in addition to the costumes. There were effects. One effect was something called Hellmouth, and that was a hole that basically was cut into that mansion, that backdrop. Um, and brightly colored orange yellow fabric was placed on that circle, and someone probably was able to create some sort of wind that would cause it to flow out and make an impact visually for the spectators. The popularity of cycle plays as we get to the end of the 16th century is going to diminish because of the uh, powerful nature of religious drama when it comes to people who are of different opinions, different faiths, different backgrounds, standing regulated or without some sort of structure to keep them from becoming violent. Fights broke out. They indeed became violent, and people were injured. For that reason, and because people were also moving toward more secular interests, plays that dealt with um, man and his trials on earth, but not necessarily based in the scripture. These also were dramas that dealt with common everyday life, not related to Christianity. So we are moving toward or moving away from Christian theater primarily and exploring other subjects, other forms. Um, but during that period, when the popularity of the cycloplay, of the vernacular religious drama, started to wane a bit, um, what was popular, what became popular, was something called first a morality play. With a morality play, you have a character that represents or that is identified as someone that we can relate to. We can see ourselves in that character. Um, the most popular morality play does just that. It is called Everyman. The writer is anonymous, the playwright, but at the heart of Everyman is a character that for whom we feel a great deal of connection. We are certainly empathetic to what that character goes through. But every man is coming to the end of his life, and he is greeted by death. And the question, of course, is where will you go? How was your life? How did you spend your life? And the fact is that every man didn't really pay a lot of attention to how he spent his life on earth, not really considering the hereafter or God or faith. Um, so it's important for him, of course, to get to heaven. But to do that, he has to have people to represent him, to talk for him, to speak for him. And he asks the people that he associated with while during his life, and no one will accompany him. Um, but as the what appears to be a very negative ending is looming, um, a character that represents and expresses the good deeds that every man performed while he was on earth during his life speaks of, and he accompanies every man to the hereafter, obviously, hopefully to heaven. Um, at the heart of the morality play is the use of allegory with allegorical figures. These are characters that represent human qualities. Um, this causes or certainly helps to tell the story, especially if you consider the time. This is very clear if I make an appearance on stage and I represent love, or I represent jealousy. I could be, or envy, for example, and I am identified with a color. Red might be something that suggests anger, possibly passion. Black, the darker colors suggest something more serious. Um, but also, if this character is envy, the color that we associate with envy is of course green, and we understand that, we see that, and we can identify that character because of the connection with the human quality and the color.